I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, a full service intellectual property law firm.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I work at Gearhart Law doing the marketing, and I have my own startups.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk with small businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, and discuss the intellectual property that makes them flourish. Today on our show, we have Mark Drager, who is a brand positioning expert and founder of Phanta Media, and he's also a podcast host and a storyteller. So I want to hear at least one good story.
Yes, and then we have Mark Priddy with Happy Day Brands, who's helping us all be healthier by making super healthy food that we can put in our bodies to nourish ourselves. We want to hear all about that. And then we have Mike Ortega with Petzey. I cannot believe this has not been invented before. If your cat or dog is sick in the middle of the night, what do? That Mike's got the answer.
Great. But before we get to our distinguished guests, it's time for IP in the news. So what are we talking about today? And I just want the audience to know I'm completely unprepared for this segment.
Okay, so what if you were on a jury and you were instructed by the judge to define what the word beer means? What is beer?
Well, I mean, is that like even a legal question?
Well, so there is a case where Corona has Corona beer. They sued a company that had hard seltzers for trademark infringement. It went to court and the judge ruled the jury must define beer to resolve the case.
Well, no wonder our legal system is having so many problems and there's so many backlogs, right? If you get cases like that. Is there like a real case here though?
Yes. So U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan ruled that Modelo, who's using the Corona hard seltzer label, is not entitled to an immediate pretrial win.
What the heck does that mean?
Wait, I got that wrong. No, it's Modelo is suing Constellation. Sorry. So U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan ruled that Modelo, which is Anheuser-Busch's group, is not entitled to an immediate pretrial win in its trademark case against Constellation. So it also denied Constellation's bid to end the case early last month. So the decision sets up a jury trial that could turn on how the companies defined the word beer in a trademark licensing agreement.
They might have had too many beers there.
All right. So basically, as I understand it, the case is about whether or not you can call a seltzer a beer, right? And they're in court right now fighting about it.
It's a famous brand name to describe your seltzer. So there's Corona beer, which is Anheuser-Busch's product. And then there's this other company that decided to make Corona hard seltzer. They're both in the alcoholic beverage category. I don't know how they could get away with it.
Right. Okay. So that's the case, right? Because you have two different companies using Corona, one for seltzer, one for beer, right?
Yes.
So what does beer got to do with anything?
Well, they have to define beer because the argument that the other side is making is that
seltzer is not beer.
Seltzer is not beer.
Got it. All right.
So
well, okay. I mean, you wouldn't think they'd have to go to court over something like this, but I think that's what companies do. Anyway, Mark, what are your thoughts about this situation?
Mark Drager.
Mark,
oh, yeah.
Mark and I are like, which one?
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm gonna play a bit of a different hand here. I mean, first of all, Corona's a terrible name. I mean, I don't know why they're arguing over this because there was this big thing called the virus that happened, and actually beer sales went down because of the coronavirus. And so, if you're setting out to create a brand, why would you go ahead and create a drink using a brand that already exists? I mean, it's going to be harder to rank for SEO. It's going to be harder to get your one seltzer in the minds and the hearts of everyone who's out there shopping. So frankly, this actually just proves that they're arguing over something that they shouldn't even be arguing over.
I totally get where you're coming from. And I have to say, I can't point to any names, but I've been involved in cases where I'm like, this has no business impact. It makes no sense. Why are we doing this? But here we are. So no, great points. And I think that is really something that we should keep in mind. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Well, I am a great consumer of beer, not a connoisseur, but I think we should define beer. If Coca-Cola can have their formula in a vault, I think we should define beer so people really know.
Right. I mean, this is important. I mean, it's only been around. I mean, beer has only been around for thousands of years. And so it is important that we finally get to the point where we get a legal definition of beer. I agree with you 100%. And Mark, what are your thoughts?
Oh gosh, I mean, I agree with all of them. I think perhaps maybe the easiest way is for everybody to gather around a table, everybody have a shot together, and the last person's done in just minutes. So
There you go.
yeah.
And that sounds like a beer summit or something, right?
You're right.
Where and then they can work it out in a bar someplace. I couldn't agree more. So,
Yeah. So Kenya.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to understand what the end result is of all of this. So, based on the definition, what do they expect to happen?
Well, I guess if they define seltzer as beer, they have to stop using Corona seltzer, right? So
I got it. Okay.
And I think given the size of the companies, what they really want is somebody off the market, or they want to force them to change their name, which is why you have all the big legal guns involved here, is because there's already been a lot invested in packaging and marketing. And so they're going to have to change if they want to stay on the market if the court rules against them, right?
Well, it's kind of silly. I feel like what substantiates beer over seltzer? The amount of carbon that's in one versus the other?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Or
As a chemist, I can definitely say yes, beer has more carbon.
well, but doesn't
and more
beer have like
carbs.
hops in it?
It's grown from hops. I don't know, with all these craft beers, man, I can have anything in it.
It could be anything.
Yeah. So scientifically, they have a good shot of proving their case that they are in fact differently, I think.
Right. But that doesn't mean that they're going to win from a trademark perspective, right? So
Right. They're
we have
both in the alcoholic drinks categories. I don't see how they could possibly say Anheuser-Busch doesn't have a full right here. So it's just my feeling.
I think that feeling is right on point. So now it's time to leave the roundtable and introduce our guest, Mark Drager. Mark has already made an insightful and outstanding comment on the show. He's a brand and positioning expert. He's the founder of Phanta Media, podcast host and storyteller. So Mark, how do you talk about being a storyteller? That's kind of an interesting thing to put on your bio.
Well, thank you. Enough people come up to you and say, one, you're a storyteller. Two, people keep trying to interrupt you, and every time that you're telling a story, you're like, no, let me finish, and then eventually you just realize, I guess I'm a storyteller, and it sounds pretty cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, absolutely. So, what's your favorite story?
My favorite story. I tend to answer really simple questions by wanting to provide all the context. And that comes from my marketing background. I don't know. I hate it when people skip things, which is also why, as a podcast host, I ask so many follow-up questions, because if you don't have the entire story, if you don't have all of the context of what happened originally and why does this matter and why this is important, and then this happened, and you're raising the stakes and you're keeping people as you speak throughout, then I feel like you're not painting a full picture, and you're not doing your job as the, I guess, communicator, the storyteller, whatever that might be.
Right. Because one little detail can change the whole thing, right? That you left out. Right. So I agree. So I really wanted to ask you, we're in the end of 2022 when we're recording this. We're going into 2023. Nobody knows what's going to happen in 2023. But if you were, if a person, a small business, were to look at their marketing plan for 2023, what's important to have in there from your perspective?
Yeah, we are coming off of one of the greatest runs of really cost-effective and cheap and extremely tactical advertising. So I don't know how old all of our listeners are, but If we go way back, let's say way back to the 80s or 90s, right? During the 80s, everything was about print and about television advertising and radio advertising and big brand, right? All of the big brands were dumping money. And if you were a small business owner, you had to get like really tactical. I remember there was this guy who used to write these books called Guerrilla Marketing, and it was like all about like tactical stuff. And then as we moved into the 2000s, when I started my agency, in 2006, social media wasn't a thing. We used to shoot everything on tape. We shot videos on tape. And so advertising at that point, Google just started to do this thing called pay-per-click, right? Where, you could take out an ad on Google. And truthfully, for small businesses, over the last 7, 8, 9 years with Facebook advertising and with all these different types of advertising, we've become addicted to really low cost, really scalable, and really things that you could track quite well, types of advertising. And we've seen over the last few years with the changes to Facebook, with Google, with costs going up, with competition going up, we're losing that. And so to answer your question, what we should all be focusing on is going back to some of the older school techniques of network, of building a name or a brand. Now, I'm not telling you to be Coca-Cola or Pepsi or try to just like buy awareness. It's not about that, but it's about recognizing that we're moving away from what we got addicted to, which is I'm going to spend a little bit of money on advertising. I'm going to earn a lot of money back. We have to start moving to more old school techniques.
Interesting. I mean, you're definitely out there on the forefront giving this kind of advice. I have not heard of that before.
No.
And I do agree with your comment. I remember Gary Vee saying at one point that this is the advertising cost is so low to reach so many people that eventually people are going to catch on to how low it is, and the prices are going to start going up, and because it's such a steal on Facebook and all these other organizations.
Partly to Mark's point too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, you can't stand out anymore because everybody got cheap advertising, so it just flooded everything, and it was really hard to make your brand stand out, right?
Well, so there's two different ways to think about advertising, marketing, or branding. There's the I want my audiences or my prospects or my customers to know who I am, so when they have a need, they think of me. That's the older school approach. And then what we moved to is more of a direct response or direct, if the customer, the prospect, or your audience has a need and they go to a place and search for that need, you happen to be the first person to show up. Now, that is the type of advertising that was extremely cheap, cost effective. And it's not so much that the market has become overly competitive, although it is becoming more competitive. It's that some of our big tech players, Google, Facebook, Apple, you may have heard that in April of 2021, I think it was, Apple changed its privacy settings on its phones, so that way it was harder for companies like Facebook to get in front of people. So if we go back 4, 5, 6 years, I remember running a campaign for a client who sold thermal socks, the warmest socks in the world. And we marveled at the fact that we could tell Facebook to show our ads to people who were interested in socks. Like, how does Facebook know that? That is so weird. How would Facebook know that someone wants warm socks? But we could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't do that today. Today, we can't figure out who wants warm socks. We struggle to figure out all kinds of interests because the different players have pulled back on our ability to target based on interest or based on these different things. And so as marketers, as advertisers, as branding people, as small business owners, it has simply become harder and more expensive. And so it's not that it doesn't work, it does. It's just we always have to have the cost benefit of is the juice worth the squeeze? And if it becomes so complicated to run a campaign, and if it's so hard to hit an ROI positive campaign where you're earning a lot of money back on your investment, you have to say, well, what works? And that's becoming harder and harder.
So what's the one thing you would do next year, early next year? Would you start going to a bunch of networking events if you were a small business owner?
Well, so what I would do first of all is in my in my experience, small business owners tend to generalize, right? Like we got a lot on the go. So what you want to do is get as specific as possible. You want to spend time really, really, really crafting in on who are you, what do you stand for, what makes your product different, how does it stand out in the market, and the people who work with us. But again, in my experience, almost every small business stays very general. And so this is the year to triple and quadruple down on things. Think about not only your features or your benefits or what makes you different in the marketplace, but how can you become more bold in the claims that you make? How can you make bigger promises? How can you add more value to your customers or your audience? How can you stop competing on price and compete on value? And if you do some of those things, frankly, it makes every other part of your sales and advertising process better. It will increase your profitability, and then you can outspend your competition.
Great. Kenya?
So I'm curious to see how you feel about psychographic targeting, because I feel like that's a newer age targeting tool, and it's a good way to effectively reach like certain audience like cohorts. So I just wanted to get your perspective.
Can you define it?
Yeah, what is psychographic targeting? Does that mean crazy people target people? Is that?
No, it's based on like behavioral consumption of products and phone usage. So we can take a look at someone's phone and their data and basically give you behavioral insights on like what they're buying on Amazon or what type
Mhm.
of podcast they're listening to, or just different tips and tricks on like how to reach a more focused niche audience, but we know what they're into.
Yeah. Yeah. And frankly, I said when I started my agency 2006, the internet was a certain way. At that point, we were already looking at psychographics. And so if you think as a small business owner in terms of, you've probably heard the term persona. People get really tripped up because they think that this persona is, for example, let's say mothers. Let's say that I'm working with a client or you own a business where you're targeting mothers. Typically, the people who make household purchasing decisions tend to be between 30 and 50 years of age, and they tend to be women because they're the ones who are making the purchasing decisions. So this is a group we all want to try and market to and sell to. But let's use mothers, for example. Is there a difference between a mother who is a teenage mother versus a mother in her 40s? Is there a difference between a first-time parent or mother and someone who's had 2 or 3 or 4 different kids? Is there a difference between a mother who has a child with disabilities or cognitive abilities and someone who doesn't? Is there a difference between someone who's going to homeschool their kids versus not, or go back to work right away and hire some help or a nanny, or someone who's going to be a stay-at-home parent? You know, I just gave a few examples. Is there a difference between someone who's had maybe a miscarriage or struggled to have a family versus someone who doesn't? Right? We think of a small business owner might say, "I'm targeting mothers," but there's all different types of mothers. There's different types of life situations or socioeconomic situations or different backgrounds. And if you know who you're targeting, the basic idea is tailor your message and your offer for the people you are targeting, and you will make deeper connections with them.
Right. And I think that makes, that's a really interesting point, is you have that every purchaser is, has multiple personas, right? And that you can't just, fit everybody into one category. So Mark, what are the tools that you use to determine sort of this deeper dive? How do you go about parsing out all of the different factors that go into making people your customer or your client? And how do you organize that information and then apply it?
Yeah, that's a great question. The tools that are readily available to absolutely everyone is you grab yourself a pencil or a pen, a piece of paper or a journal, and you really spend some time on this and think through it. And I'll break it down for you. I'll make it really simple for you. First of all, when it comes to advertising and marketing and branding, what you want to do, what everybody wants to do and needs to do, is try to get the perfect message in front of the right person at the right time. If you can get the perfect message in front of the right person at the right time, and you do all the time, you will have great advertising, great marketing, great sales. Your close rate will go up. Your costs will go down. So the way to do that, though, is you have to figure out three things. First, what do you want to do with your business? Like, what are your goals? What are you building? What makes you unique? What makes you different? What background do you have? What's your voice? What is it you want to do? Because the problem is people go like, I want to make money. And that's great. But if you're a local market versus a regional market, if you're going national versus non-national, if you're going international, if you have to sell 5 units to if you have to sell 50,000 units, if you're trying to get in front of a really niche industry where there's only 600 people in the entire country who you're trying to target versus you're trying to go again and get in front of 1 million people, what you are doing will dictate how you spend your money, what you focus on, who you're targeting, what's possible, and what have you. So first of all, you have to really get specific with what you want. What do you want and what are you building? Now, the reason we do this is because the next area we're going to look at are our targets, target audiences, customers, personas, prospects, whatever you want to call it. But the reason we want to get specific is you can't be everything to everyone, and we want to narrow that down. Again, we want to serve the perfect message to the right person at the right time. The only way to do that is to try and narrow things down. And so by getting really specific with what you're building, you can now get really specific with your audience. Ideally, you're only going to speak to like 1 or 2 or 3 types of people. And those 1 or 2 or 3 types of people will have universal desires. You know, you'll help them with universal problems, maybe the same problems, or they'll buy for the same reasons. And so once you understand that, once you understand who these people are, and we use a lot of really advanced tools, so we can find out people's household incomes and whether they lean left or lean right, and how they donate money, and whether they believe in their faith-based groups or non-faith-based groups, and we can find out all kinds of information about people. But what we're trying to do is determine who they are, what they care about, what they want, what they fear, what they desire. How much disposable income do they have? Where are they spending their money? How are they spending their money? Where are they spending their time? What are they watching? What are they consuming? What are they reading? What are they listening to? And once you understand all of that, here's the real secret. You can tell them what they want to hear. Think about that.
That's true.
Think about that. Like, you can tell people what they
hear all the time.
and
it
you probably
works.
think she's awesome. Yeah.
It works.
Right? Like, when was the last time someone came up to you and gave you a compliment that you believed in, that it didn't make you feel good? Right? So here's where we run into problems. Small business owners, we are so inside our world, our vertical, our bubble. We know what's right. We often get on a soapbox and go, no, consumer, no, you don't understand. You're focused on the wrong thing. And we try to preach at people. We have to meet people where they're at. So think about this. If we tell people exactly what they want to hear, or we answer their questions that they have, we have now started a conversation with them, or we've gotten their attention at the very least.
Well,
And once
that's great. I just want to say that from our perspective, I think you have to tell people what they want to hear, but it has to be the truth, and it has to be an authentic statement, because I think there has to be an authentic connection. So sometimes when we use the words, tell people what they want to hear, it sounds almost like a little bit manipulative. And I don't think that's what you mean. I think what it is you find the right person, and we find that connection, and we say it in the right way. Am I putting words in your mouth, or do you?
Well, I'm not asking anyone to be immoral, but this is the uncomfortable truth. The uncomfortable truth is you are aiming to manipulate people. You have to start the conversation with where they're at, with the goal of getting them not what they want, but what they need. So once you've entered into a conversation, you can actually start to illustrate new ideas, new points, educate them. But if you've ever gotten into an argument with someone over Thanksgiving dinner about politics, you know that nobody is changing their mind. But if you were to say, you know what, hey, person across the table, I actually agree with you for all of these reasons, and I hear what you have to say, and then you enter into a conversation with them, and then you start to say, but have you considered this or that? Or have you thought of this? Or, did you realize this or that? You have a better chance of guiding people down the path towards where you want them to get.
Well, definitely invited to our house for Thanksgiving dinner so that you can change my wife's mind on politics. But that said, we have to take a commercial break. We're with Mark Drager, who is engaging with us in a very interesting conversation, and we'll be back with more of Mark and more Passage to Profit right after this.
Well, welcome back, listeners, to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
You know, what was interesting is Mark was talking about being a storyteller, but is that really a good monkey? You know, because
A good what?
did I use the right word, monkier?
Moniker?
Oh, moniker.
What's a monkier?
Well, it's a cross between a monker and a monkey. So no, anyway.
Well, I would kind of like to finish the intro.
All right. Well, but
we've been talking to Mark
finish it, then we'll get
Drager.
back to my point.
Mark Drager with Phanta Media, who's a brand and positioning expert. And he's really been trying to tell us what things are going to look like this next year, as far as he can tell, and help us to position our companies so that we're effective in 2023. Their branding and
Right.
marketing.
I was going to go back to the monkeyer comment, but I think I'll drop it. Maybe Kenya has a question. Kenya, can you get me out of this?
Sure, I'll try. So, Mark, you had suggested that people go back to old school of like just shaping their value proposition for their business. How can businesses transform their value proposition into a storytelling mechanism where it doesn't sound like a laundry list of stuff that you do, but still highlights the benefits of your business?
Good question, Kenya.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. We call it getting listy. Like, we used to create videos for people, and eventually hit a point where you're like, and we do this, and we also do this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And it's
like the old
wow.
George Carlin skit. Did you see? Remember George Carlin? He used to do that skit.
I do. I had Kelly Carlin, his daughter, on my podcast.
Cool.
So, yeah, but to answer the question, please.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you create a brand story that actually draws people in? First of all, again, understand what you want, understand what your audience values and desires. And then the third step would be, how do you make sure you do it in a way that's different than the competition or stands out in your marketplace? I can't answer the question for you the way that you want to, because truthfully, it's called trying things and throwing it out there and see what works. And anyone who's ever started to try and sell something, like I've developed a new brand, a new product. I'm trying to bring on funding. I'm trying to bring on a VC. You are going to go through meeting after meeting after meeting. And each time you're going to have this pitch. You're going to have your 30-second pitch, your 60-second pitch. Here's what makes us different. Here's what makes us stand out. Here's the opportunity. And what do you do with each conversation? You try, you tailor, you test, you manipulate as you go along until finally on the 100th or 200th or 300th conversation, you're like, I've nailed it. Like, I've drawn them in. I've brought them into my world. And here's the thing with advertising and marketing, especially when budgets are tight or you're a smaller business, you're hoping to one and done it. You're hoping that you're going to work with someone who's going to create a headline and it's going to go on your website and you never think about it again. Or you're going to develop a brand story and you're going to put it out there and you never think about it again. So there are more cost-effective ways we can do this. Grab your phone, go to your Instagram account, post a reel of you telling this story. Watch it. Was it interesting to you? Did you hold attention? Take the same video and put it onto YouTube. YouTube is an amazing platform because it gives you more data than anywhere else. So you don't have to hire an advertising agency or a big firm. Go ahead and develop a story that you think makes sense. Put it on YouTube. And even if you only get a few views, look at your retention rate. How far into this story do people get? How quickly do they drop off of it? And make it a second time and a third time and a fourth time. My friend, I'm good friends with a guy named Evan Carmichael. He's a YouTuber. Some people may know him from YouTube. I've known him for a very long time. When he first developed his own personal brand story, he hired a really expensive New York agency. And they had him go through his story over and over and over and over and over. I think he did it like 50 or 60 times, over and over and over again. And it was through that repetition and process that he really determined what worked and what didn't work. And then you can just look at the data.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
is a
love
lot
that.
of work. I do feel like and tell me what you think. I feel like when people are telling their brand story, they should videotape themselves and have to watch themselves doing it.
There's a reason
That's
why
called
people
brand
in the
torture.
NFL, yeah, but there's a reason why people in the NFL watch game tape, or people in the NBA watch game tape, and they sit around with their teams and their coaches and they look at what they did from an outsider's perspective. I'm sure you guys watch your podcast back and say, "Oof, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to
Yeah.
make that mistake again. I'm going to be a little sharper here or there." And that's just really, really the game.
Yeah, we do. And I really feel like you do need to look at your expressions. Everything's on video now. And like you said, YouTube it's the second most searched engine after Google, right? So a lot of people have to be on YouTube, and you have to think about how you look on YouTube, but also how you sound and what you're saying. And I think it's good too if you can test it out on a few people, and if they kind of turn and walk away, you're being obnoxious, right?
Right. And I think one of the things that you alluded to earlier was the idea of networking. And one of the things that networking, not on Zoom, but in-person networking does, is it gives you a feel for your potential clients. Right? You understand, because they'll talk to you at a networking event about their problems and their challenges and their businesses, assuming it's a business networking event, right? But they'll talk to you about what's going on and what's important to them. And in addition to making personal connections, it's a great way to do a lot of informal market research. And then I think that helps you also position yourself. If your goal is to attract the people that attend that kind of networking event, then you learn about what to say and what your message is to those people, because you're talking to them, right?
Yeah, I mean it's huge. So I just an article machines, Coca-Cola machines at the movie theaters where you can pick your flavors.
Right.
This has been out for a really long time, but one of the greatest benefits to Coke is they get to collect all the data. They can determine which flavors or groups of flavors or how much drink people want to. And suddenly, if someone wants orange, vanilla, Coke flavor mixed together, they can say like, well, there's a huge demand for this and we can go ahead and create this. Whereas if other flavors are hardly ever being used, they can cut it. The same thing we can do in small business. And so when you go to that networking event, you can decide, I am going to test this story or this message or this pitch. But equally, let's say that you want to just find out whether people like a headline or not, like a one-liner or a product picture. You can just run a really small Facebook campaign, spend $10 a day with no goal of selling anything or making money, and just seeing which one of these headlines gets more clicks, or which one of these photos gets people to click on it. And the more testing that you can do in the real world, the more data you will get. And the data doesn't lie. People are 100% on it with you when you are looking at the data, and it points out to you where the mistakes are and you can fix it. And so this doesn't have to be complicated or expensive, but it's all sitting out there. And if you're not doing this, just know that your competition probably is. And this is what makes them better.
That's a really great tip. We should cut that out for the feature.
Yeah.
If the part, if your competition isn't doing this, you should be. So, okay. That's for Noah.
Yeah.
So that's a really great tip. I just want to mention something that I see in your background there. So you have a very cool background. You have some trophies, you have a picture, but you have this poster that says, think big, be bold, say yes. What does that mean to you?
That's my personal mantra. I back in 2012, so in my past, I started a video production company in 2006. We were able to build it to a multi-million-dollar company. And I've surrounded myself with some of the most remarkable people, but I realized at a certain point that fear was actually driving most of my decisions. I was worried about not being good enough for the clients or not making enough money, or I had a 7-figure payroll. How do you make payroll every single month with a service-based business that has no recurring revenue? That can be hard. And so I realized
You're preaching to the converted here.
yeah. So I realized that even when I thought I was thinking big, I really wasn't, because every single thing I've achieved in my life is bigger than I would have thought if you asked me to sit down and come up with something. So I marvel at entrepreneurs who have these big, huge, audacious dreams and goals and then work towards them. I was the opposite. I always surprise myself. Hey, we broke $1 million finally. I was hoping to, but finally we did it. And hey, we broke $2 million. And hey, I have 24 full-time staff. And we've done television commercials all around the world. And we worked with NBA players. And I was just like, everything was a surprise to me. And I realized that's not the way it's supposed to be. And so think big is my challenge to myself, to think bigger than I even think when I'm already thinking big. Being bold, I realized that I often don't take bold action. And this came back again to my friend Evan Carmichael. Was going over to his condo, and we were struggling in the business, and I had to make some major restructures. And I was about to say to him, you know, if I were bold, I would. And he stopped me. He said, no, I don't want to hear it, Mark. I said, no, let me just say this. If I were really bold, I would. And he said, stop. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear what you would do if you're bold. Be bold and do it. And I was going to say I would restructure my team. I would fire my clients. I would change my entire business. And he says, no, I don't want to hear it. Stop saying what you would do if you were bold and just go ahead and be bold. And that brings me to the last point, say yes. I often say no to everything. I mean, my wife says, you want a vacation? Not really. No. Do you want to take a break? No. Do you want to go do this? No. Do you want to spend this money? No. Like my reaction is like no to everything all the time. Now, people confuse this because they think like, don't you say yes too often? I say no to my stuff all the time. I say yes to everyone else's things. I put everyone else first, but I say no to anything for me. And so if I'm able to think big, bigger than I ever thought, and if I'm able to take bold action, just say yes, I've realized and taught myself that on the other side of those things, it's pretty fun. It's pretty cool. Like amazing things happen that I could not have even imagined.
Right. And we've talked about that fear on this show, the fear that entrepreneurs have, and just trying to work through that and ways to overcome it so that you can be more successful.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Mark is saying about setting the goals. There's another part of me, though, at this phase of my career is also just to kind of trust my intuition and see where things go, too. And so,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like in this no man's land, no person's land, of where on the one hand, I love to plan things, and I really want to say, okay, by this point next year, this is where we want to be. And these are the bold steps that we're going to take to get there. But then there's another part of me that says, well, maybe it's better just to kind of let life unfold a little bit and see what opportunities arise and try to grab and take those. I don't, and I haven't figured out what is best for me yet. So we'll probably do this show again a year from now, and you'll ask me that question. I'll be like, yeah, I'm still pretty stuck in where I was last year. So, but we'll see how it works out.
Well, I believe that you have to have a very clear picture of what you want and of what you want and are working towards. So hold that tight, but hold how you get there when you get there very, very loosely, because it's never going to unfold the way that you think it will. And you need to leave yourself open for those little, what I call it, kind of like magical life events. If you look back, you're able to connect all the dots that got you to where you are today. And so looking back, you can connect step by step, up followed by down, win followed by loss, all along the way. And yet when you look forward, often we hold everything so tightly. We want things to work out the way we want it to work out, when we want it to work out. And if it doesn't do that and it doesn't live up to expectations, we are disappointed and we're angry and all of these things. And yet, look back, the dots connected. Look forward, the dots will connect, and you really have no idea how it will connect. And so dance the way you want to dance, but have a very clear idea of or picture of where you're moving towards, at least, because if you don't have that aim, then you're really going nowhere.
Right. And I think that's a lot of the reason for a business plan. I know we're going back to basics here. And a marketing plan is it really helps you figure out where you're going and coalesce with what you want and where you're going to go. with your business, and the marketing plan is kind of the roadmap to get there, right? So I really feel like writing those things down, and we talked about this on a show, I don't know, a couple of years ago. If you write all that stuff down when you're really enthusiastic about starting out and you're really enthusiastic about launching your marketing plan, then when things are kind of in the doldrums, you could go back to what you wrote down as your plans and recapture your enthusiasm, hopefully.
That sounds like a great idea. Yeah, I would also say for when I was first starting out, I used to write down my goals and they sort of magically happen. I mean, lots of times, I mean, I would pay attention to them. I was a hard worker and everything like that. But I think for me, writing it down was an important piece. And so,
Right, but I have zigzagged with the things that I've started. They don't go in a straight line, like you were saying, Mark. And and then trying to keep up with the marketing landscape and how quickly it changes.
anyway, we need to wrap this segment up. Mark, it's been absolutely fascinating and fantastic to have you with us today. And so many great thoughts and good advice, a lot of things to think about and implement in our own business lives. And we'll be back with more Passage to Profit right after this. Welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. Our special guest today is Mark Drager, who just is a wealth of information, expertise, and wisdom on brand positioning, among other things. And it's time now to turn to our Power Move segment. Kenya, welcome again to the show. As always, so great to see you. Who's power moving today?
Well, thank you, Richard. So for Power Move today, we are going to be talking about Tyler Perry. So we know him as a movie maker. He's an entrepreneur. Forbes has recognized him as a billionaire, and this is hot off the press. So he just announced that he's planning a movie on the historic Black female army unit based in World War II, right? So the movie Move, as I call it, is outside of his traditional storytelling, where he typically focuses on a particular Medea character. But he's going to be launching the film called 6888, and it's going to begin production in 2023. And it's based on the Women's Army Corps, which was an all-Black battalion that was sent to Europe in response to a mail backlog that was preventing frontline troops from getting mail and affecting morale. And the Women's Army Corps was signed into law by FDR in 1943, and the First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and civil rights activist Mary McLeod Bethune advocated for the admittance of African Americans into the Army. And now Tyler Perry is going to tell their story. So he is our power mover today.
That sounds really good. I can hardly wait for it to come out.
What a great what a great story. And I didn't know anything about this. So leave it to Tyler Perry to really bring this to light. And you see all sorts of perspectives in there, gender perspectives, race perspectives, but all very positive. And I think it's important to know how everybody in the country contributed to the effort to win in World War II. So thanks for bringing that up. Elizabeth is one of Tyler Perry's greatest fans.
I think he's hilarious.
She loves his movies, and I've seen them all like 2 or 3 times. Lots of times I'll come in and she'll have a Tyler Perry movie on. So
Does so well, and I'm hoping he puts a little bit of humor into this film. His movies are funny, but they have a message. They're always about relationships, and they're always about how to do relationships, right? And but it's funny, so you watch and so it goes between funny and serious funny. So I hope he gets a little humor into this newest venture.
Well, we'll have to see, and it's definitely a different kind of project for him. So we're all looking forward to him reaching out into the unknown. So Elizabeth, what's been going on with your businesses?
Well, so I have 2 things going on right now. I have been working on my startup. It was Fireside. I had to rename it Blue Streak, but it is the first video directory of business service providers online that is not directory based and is on short video, uses short video. So I'm working on the website for that. In the meantime, and this fits really well with one of our speakers today, with Mike. I have a kitten who has this problem, and the vets can't figure it out. We can't figure it out. We're trying all sorts of things for the poor little guy. So I'm starting a cat podcast with someone that I met at a conference who's very into cats, more than I am even. And we're going to pull in the community and say, has anybody ever seen this happen with a cat before? Can you give us any answers, or come on the podcast and tell us your fun cat stories? And let's talk about cats. And we want to build it out into a big community, but we're starting with the podcast, and we're hoping to release the first episode very soon.
Right. So it's going to be a cat palooza for,
It's called the Jersey Podcats.
right. So if you're a cat lover and you like to palooza, the Jersey Podcats is the place to go.
So there. So I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mark Priddy, with Happy Day Brands, food to make you feel good. So welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Appreciate it.
So
Well,
tell us what you have.
Yeah. So, we started Happy Day Brands about 4 years ago. We create good by crafting better for you products, gluten-free, organic, plant-based products that help nourish the body, but also bring people together around the table and then to help transform lives. We go about that really by our mission of our buy one, give one, where for every product we sell, we provide a meal to a local food bank. And so that's real important to us, to really use business as a force for good. And so Happy Day Brands has really been on a mission to not only offer better for you food, but to really come alongside of people experiencing food insecurity. And I know that firsthand. I'm a kid from the other side of the track. Mark, you talked about context and about story. And so, kind of to go back a little, Happy Day Brands was really birthed out of the story of sacrifice and the story of love. My mom and dad gave me their life savings. I was a kid from the other side of the track. I understood, we had food stamps. And if I was lucky, every once in a while, we'd be able to go to thrifty drugstore. And I'll date myself. For 5 cents, I could get that single scoop ice cream in that square cone, right? And so, my mom and dad were very instrumental in really shaping who I am and our family's lives. I was going to USC at the time, and I was in their entrepreneurial program. And I had this idea about a business, and it was really around nutritional supplements and functional foods. And so I've been kind of in that specialty food market space for, since the late 80s. So for quite a while. And I took a summer off during my senior year to kind of dream a little bit and explore this idea. What would it be like to, start a business around that philosophy of nutrition and food, et cetera. And I didn't have much money. And so for the summer, I decided to sleep on my mom and dad's couch, save a little bit of cash, and just began this process of really starting to think and dream about business. And so I launched it my senior year. It was called Richardson Labs. And, I was able to get lucky and build that company. And years later, we were in about 100,000 stores. And sold it to a company called Rexall in 1998. And so, I really at that time, just took a break with my family. I've been married 33 years now, 6 kids, 4 beautiful daughters who are very strong and really have a heart to really change the world. My sons as well. And so we just kind of took this time and said, what would it look like if we could think about, and this was around 2005, when kind of social entrepreneurship was kind of just beginning. So we thought, okay, what would it look like to really use business as a force for good? And how could we really think through creating products and creating a company that really, that doing good didn't kind of sit on the outside. So often when we think of like corporate social responsibilities, we usually, and it is changing, but we usually create those to mitigate the risk of something that potentially we did wrong. instead of actually taking our passions and what we really desire in that area of doing good and making it really a part of our DNA. And so that was the starting point for us, is how do we really embed the DNA of wanting to really make a difference in people's lives through business. You know, I'm a big believer that, go ahead.
So how did you do that? I mean, how did you infuse your company with the doing good DNA that you were just talking about?
Yeah, I think it really just comes out of authenticity, that I think, really kind of creating a community, a team around, just around those values of what it means to be a good neighbor, what it means to really actually come alongside of those that are in need. I think, if your starting point is that you truly believe everybody should be treated with dignity and respect, and everybody has a place at the table, then it becomes somewhat easy to actually gather people around that mission. I'm a big believer from a team building standpoint that if you do business well and do business good, you attract those types of people. And so we infuse that at the beginning of just saying, these are our values. This is what we want to do. And this is kind of the change we want to make. And for us, it was really around food insecurity. As we know, it's a huge deal right now.
It is. So people can support this effort by buying your products, right?
Right. Yeah.
So what kind of products do you have?
Yeah, well, so we do a full line of baking items. So we have a line of oatmeal products, a line of baking flours. We really focus in the specialty food area, so gluten-free, organic, or plant-based. We just launched, or actually are getting ready to launch in the next couple of weeks, a organic, plant-based, vegan pasta. And so we're really excited about that. And so, yeah, you can find various products on our website and in retailers. We do really a lot of work in that kind of specialty food space.
That's great. Mark, do you have any questions or comments?
I'm just always amazed at these types of products because really it seems so niche. So when you guys were starting up this brand, were there any concerns with being so focused specifically on healthy foods, non-GMO foods, things like that? Or was that always a benefit to you to just not try to go too big, too quick?
Yeah, I think it was always a benefit to really kind of really decide kind of that niche, where you want it to be. I think for us, creating better for you products is just an important part of our lifestyle. It's a part of I think where a generation is moving. I think people are, I think they care about what they eat. I think it's important. I think they want to be healthy. They want to, be able to live long lives and make a difference in the world. So for us, really, it was kind of focusing on that niche and really working hard to kind of differentiate ourselves in that.
Excellent. So Kenya, do you have a question or comment?
I do. I have both, actually. So I was a WIC kid. And back in the day when the government used to give you the food and you'd get the gross peanut butter in the can that you had to stir every single time you wanted to go make a sandwich.
Right.
It was really gross, very high on protein. I got to tell you, it filled you up
Yeah.
and did it and served its purpose. But I say all that to say, I know you have a do good component to your company and to your brand. Is there a plan or a strategy to try to educate communities that are underserved when it comes to understanding nutrition and, the benefits of eating healthier and access to things like that?
Access to good food. Yeah, it's a great question. We work with food bank partners around the country with Feeding America. And so that is a big piece for us. We don't do much of that training. What we do is partner with the food banks and really support them in that. I think one of the things that that we've seen and we've really been putting our hands to is this area of kids and healthy food. And so for instance, in Idaho, we work with our food bank here, and we provide healthy bowls of oatmeal across the entire state in the elementary program. So we're trying to bring those good products to bear, and really working with our partners who are really on the ground, trying to do a great job educating around better for you products and then access to that food. You know, food is a human right, right? Everybody should have an opportunity to have good food. And I think, to your point, it's difficult. You know, it's difficult from a budget standpoint. And so for us, we're trying our best to see how can we alleviate some of these problems by using business as a way to provide those types of products. And we really localize it. So for instance, if you're in Oregon at a Winco and you purchase a product, a Happy Day Brands product at Winco, that give back stays within that local context at that food bank. So we're really working regionally as best that we can to kind of, do a good job around educating and providing those types of healthy meals.
Excellent. So if people go to your website to buy your products, what's your best seller?
I think probably right now, it would probably be our superfood oatmeal cups. They're in a little ready-to-eat cup. They contain oats and quinoa and flax. They contain a plant-based protein, so it's high in protein. It's really easy. Little hot water in there, stirred around, and you're on your way. So that's a real good product for us. We also roast coffee, and so we produce an organic and fair trade coffee. And so coffee is a big seller for us. And then we're really excited now about this plant-based pasta. One of the problems with gluten-free pastas is the chew and the bite. It just doesn't really hold up. And so if there's anybody out there that's ever tried a gluten-free pasta, they have a hard time holding up. And so we've been working on that for a while. And so we just got back from the Gluten-Free World Expo, and we launched that product there, and it was a real big hit. So that's a good one as well.
I didn't know there was a gluten-free World Expo.
Yeah.
That's something for everyone.
Yep. There you go.
So Mark, I was looking at our notes here, and we always ask our guests if, before they come on the show, do you have any experience with IP? Et cetera. And I noted that you have in the past, that you've had some patents for nutritional formulas. And I think that's really interesting because there are a lot of people out there who say, well, no, you can't patent a recipe, you can't patent a food product. And so the fact is you can, and you did, right? So
yeah.
What motivated you to file for patent protection on these products as opposed to just keeping something a secret, for example?
Yeah. Right. So it first of all, great question. And for us, that was back in, I think 1995. And I think we were really looking at it was kind of when the natural products industry was really boutique. And so we wanted to really do some legitimate double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. So we wanted to do some studies around a couple of our products at UCLA and Georgetown and others. And so we knew the importance at that time that if we really were going to spend the time and the money to do it, that we wanted to really try to find a product and some ingredients that we could patent. And we were able to do that. And I think that was really one of the big pieces. I know you guys talk about this a lot, but it was the big differentiator for us when we started, when people started coming to us to look to purchase the company, was that we had those patents. And so we're hoping as we continue in this new space with Happy Day Brands that, we can get lucky as well and find some interesting products that we can, protect and get some patents on.
Well, that's great. And I as a intellectual property lawyer, I always think about protecting everything, right? And sometimes though, it's the right move to keep it as a trade secret, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not, with a patent, you're publishing all the ingredients, but On the other hand, having the exclusivity can also be beneficial. So it depends a lot on your business strategy. And
Exactly.
I'm glad we had a little discussion about this, because I think it's something that people should consider, even if ultimately they decide not to do it for strategic reasons, but it's something that could be a valuable piece of property depending on the business.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
So we come to the end of our time.
I think
Talk about
unfortunately
food.
we have, yeah.
Darn, I love talking about food.
I should have had some of those ready to eat oatmeals for you there.
Send them over. It is the holiday season when we're taping this, so
So people find
Don't
your
go to
food.
their Instagram page because you will be starving.
So Mark, where do people find you and find your products?
Yeah, you can find us at Sprouts across the country, as well as Winco stores. Matter of fact, a big shout out to Winco. During this time where everything is so expensive, they really do provide our products at a really reasonable price in the bulk sections. So you can go into the bulk section and ask for Happy Day brands, and we have about 17 different products in the bulk sections. And in addition to that, of course, you can go online at happydaybrands.com and purchase your products there as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So now we are on to our next presenter. And this is such a great idea. If you live with pets, I'm not going to say pet owner, because those of us with cats know you never own a cat, they own you. Anyway, Mike Ortega has Petzey, Petzzy, which I think is going to change a lot of pet owner lives for the better. So please tell us what it is and what it does.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for your story about your journey to your cat podcast. I love that. I've been on a journey myself. I work in dog years, so I've been doing this for 21 years. But Petzey is, yeah, it feels that way too. I look that way too. But Petzey's a free app. It's a on-demand mobile pet telehealth app that you can get free from either of the app stores. And everyone of your listeners have had this issue happen. You get up in the morning, you come up from work, there's your pet sick on the floor, and you don't know what to do, and you go into panic. So do I call my vet? Do I call my brother? What do I do? And I sat there and looked at that problem and said, isn't there an app that I can open up and click a button and get immediately connected to a vet professional, just like Uber? And there wasn't. So that was a genesis for Petzey. That is what we built. It's launched in the market today. We are in all 50 states. So we have a seamless, ubiquitous network in all 50 states. We have vet professionals that answer the calls for you. It's a consultation call. So pet health, pet care, pet behavior. That's what we do today. We're following really in the direction of full telehealth and telemedicine, just like in the human healthcare. We think that's coming in about 9 months or so. We plan to lead that, be a leader in the market there, be able to offer that as soon as it's available.
Okay, hold on a
So
second.
it's been, yeah.
For people listening, if you didn't catch that, you're not going to have to take your cat to the vet initially or your dog to the vet
Right.
initially. You could do it on Zoom, telemedicine for pets. I love that. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is literally on your smartphone. You click a button, you're connected to a vet professional. You can ask any question you want, and it's a flat rate, $20 per call. That's it. No hidden fees, no annual fees, no subscription fees, and nothing like that. And we record all the calls for learning and training. I can't tell you how many pets we've saved every month, and I have to share one story with you. So this was to serve pet owners for peace of mind, convenience, at an affordable cost. I know all the heads are shaking. I can't tell you how many times I came home, my golden retriever was sick on the floor. I ran to my vet and I paid $300 or $400 to find out that my dog had a cold. So that's what this is for, to find out what is the best thing I need to do for my pet. What we care about are healthy, happy, safe pets. So it's a flat rate, $20. I will tell you, right in New York, there was a young lady who was, I think, 3 a.m, had an issue with her dog. The dog was pregnant, by the way, and she got connected to one of our 12-year vet professionals. She spent 20 minutes on the phone and we delivered 8 puppies over the network. Yeah, we
Wow.
never thought we would do that.
I never.
Yeah, it was
would have
fantastic. That
imagined
cost
that either.
$20, by the way. So it's a fantastic thing. And I'll just share you, my background's a little bit different. Like your journey, Elizabeth, I came out of 30 years in technology. My expertise was in network infrastructures. And I got exposed, like a lot of us to this thing called Uber. And I went and did research on it. My hands started to shake. And I realized what you can do with these platform apps. So periodically, there is a unique technology and a product innovation that comes along at a perfect time in the marketplace, backed, as you know, Richard, by changing regulation and policy. We've seen it with the cell phone. We've seen it with the internet. We believe, thinking big, Mark, we believe we can create the largest pet health services company in the world, and we won't own a clinic. That's what we're planning to do. Everyone's looking for the next big platform app. We are confident and hopeful that it will be us. There's 3 significant transitions going on in the marketplace right now. Petzey sits in the middle of all 3. The first is the sharing economy. We're all in it. I have 3 millennials. Okay, it's the gig economy. It's the one-click economy. One click, you're taking a ride across Uber and Uber across town. One click, you're renting a lake house. One click, you are getting your groceries delivered. Now, one click, you got 1,000 vets in your pocket. That's really where we're going. And then technology. I'm a technology guy. We've already tested Petzey with smart speakers. Hey, Alexa, call Petzey. Of course. We're testing wearables. We're looking at AI. We want to get to predictive, predictive medicine for pets. And then lastly, the work-life balance that everyone's moving towards. One thing that COVID did, it created the work at home economy. So everybody wants to live where they want to live now and work where they want to live. And we're creating jobs and opportunities for people who are there to serve pets. So that's really what we've created. We're thrilled with where we are. We're very, very early. We launched in January. Not only do we, and by the way, and I'd love to get some thinking from you, Richard, we certainly have trademarked and trade secreted our methodology. It's very, not only do we run on a platform network similar to Uber and Airbnb and everyone else, we built proprietary routing and matching algorithms on top of that. And so we are in discussion now about, can we take this process and get it patented?
Well, I mean, without having studied it extensively, I mean, generally, yeah, you can. Do you want to? Is the second.
Well, thank you. We do. We've done the trade secret trademark thing worldwide. We are in the process of talking to. We hope to have an announcement here. First quarter, we're talking to one of the largest pet pharmaceutical firms in the world. We're building a strategic partnership with them. We'll be building a joint global marketing agreement with them as well. And I think they're going to help us be the leaders in getting to telemedicine. So we think we'd like to get that protection. We'd like to go through that process.
Yeah. And I think based on your business goals, it makes sense to have something that can be licensed or sold that is fundamental to your business, aside from the technical platform, aside from the goodwill that you're generating, aside from the branding. And so having that piece of having that additional piece makes it more attractive to an acquirer, because they feel confident it's going to be harder for a competitor to come in, right? And so all of those pieces are an important part of your business strategy, but you really do have to kind of get into the weeds with a professional and sort it all out. And, the budget is an issue. Geographic scope could be an issue. Is this just US based? Is it global? Is it a global opportunity? It sounds like it could be a global opportunity, actually. Is your target market just, homeowners with pets, or are you also?
Well, yeah, thank you for that. So it's been
agriculture.
here we are I'm getting an education on the branding and marketing today, believe me. Well, we're just starting. This is such perfect timing for me to hear the guests talk about, the focus and all the things and I took a bunch of notes, but we're just starting the third phase of the business. The first phase was to build the platform network and the technology. So build MVP1, get all the vet professionals involved. That has been a joy. A lot of people came to us and said, Mike, how are you going to get vets to work with you on your network for free? They're 1099s. right? They're just like Uber drivers. And that has been probably one of the most successful things we've done. We source them from multiple areas. We look at their credentials. We look at their license. We interview every single one. And if they qualify, then we do a formalized onboarding, and then they're available on the network to answer calls. And it has been such a joy. The passion those people have. And I love the greater good thing that we heard about from Mark. The passion these people have for pets just makes such a complete difference in what we do. But and then the second phase was really validation in the market. Are people going to see this as valuable? What parts are valuable? We have a complete different go-to-market strategy than all the other of our competitors out there. As I mentioned, we're available in all 50 states. It's live, complete ubiquitous network. Our biggest competitor, I think, is in 18 cities. So we have a very different go-to-market as well. We're not selling to clinics. We sell to pet owners. And I love the conversations we had earlier about the marketing and the definition and defining, your purpose and your messaging and all the testing, because I think the channels have changed dramatically, in my opinion. I've watched what's happening with social media and all the other things that are going out there, and the clutter and the difficulty and all that stuff. But also I look at the pet owner. Look, we sell, our target market, anybody that's got a smartphone and a pet, really. But we really focus in on millennials and Gen Zs, because it's their love language. It's what they do. And it's this, what's happened in the pet sector is pretty dramatic. There's been a massive increase in pet ownership. 80% of the households in the United States have a pet. 61% of them don't have a vet. Well, who's your vet? And they get on the phone with Petzey. Who's your vet? You are. So we really have a dynamic change. One of our board members said, with companion pets, they've gone from out in the yard to in the house to on the bed to under the sheets. They literally are children. They really are part of your family. So we really do focus on that. And we have a completely different market approach in that we go to large enterprise clients that have very large employee populations. And we present Petzey as a voluntary benefit to all of their employees. It's a free downloadable app. Your people can use it. They use it for retention, for recruitment. I no longer have to call my boss and take a half a day off to take my golden retriever to the vet. I can just pick up the phone.
Now that's
That's a
something
good
we can appreciate. I just want to give Mark a chance and
Sure.
Kenya to ask a question here before our segment comes to an end. So
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for that beautiful middle place, right?
Yeah.
I have a golden retriever, and when he was a puppy, he decided to eat 18 freshly baked chocolate chip cookies
Oh,
off the counter. And I've been told that, chocolate's not great for dogs. And so what do? I call my vet. What do they say? Come on down. That doesn't help me. And especially if it's after hours, I'm always concerned, like, if I do nothing, will I wake up to my dog passed
Right.
away? So I see the opportunity, and I love it to just give me some assurances, because the only alternative is go to my vet or go to Google. Neither of those make me feel comfortable. The question I have, and I hope you don't mind it being
No,
so
right.
on the nose, is I understand that you're looking at a $20 fee with a $5 gross profit. And so I'm curious whether, with all the things you need to scale in terms of customer acquisition, lifetime value
Right.
of customer retention, operations, everything, whether a $5 gross profit is enough to build
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I get asked that a lot. So the answer to that is a resounding yes. Because this is a mass market play, guys. This is like Uber. There's going to be millions of people calling in and talking to Petzey for that entry level cost. On top of that, we have built a number of scalable services on top of the app, especially with all the partners we have. We're building 5 different specializations. Is that a rash on my cat? What's that dust? What is that? Click, you're routed right to a dermatologist that can talk to you about your cat. Dermatology, oncology, behavior, et cetera, et cetera. Then on top of that, we have partners that we're putting in place so we can offer and suggest over-the-counter things. Relax, Mark, you don't have to go to the vet. What you really need is an eye flush. Click. And so we have several partners that are delivering and doing fulfillment for us for that. And then soon we're going to be doing full diagnosis and prescription right on the platform, just like Teladoc and all the people that you've heard. So we're positioning for that. We're also doing horizontal services. We have partners that have various kinds of products. And Mark Priddy, I'd love to talk to you more. We've got a whole bunch of pet products that fit right into what you're doing. So we have a
Okay.
lot of other revenues that we're doing outside of the consultation call. To me, is just an opportunity to get someone to try
Just the
it.
acquisition.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
a lot, that's like a lot of tech things, I think, like people that do stuff on open source. They make the money off the add-ons, and so that's really good to know. But yeah, we need to give Kenya a chance to chime in here.
So super quick, I'm team vet because my sister's a vet. So I'm just
Good job.
curious. I appreciate the fact that they're lending their services and they're volunteering, but like what is there any model in place for the vets to
Oh yeah, absolutely. What we're doing, and we love talking to vet. You can't practice medicine without a veterinary clinic and not veterinarians. So we literally add tremendous value in our partnership to them. First and foremost, we're elevating them to virtual clinics. When I go around and talk to all the remote clinics that are out there, what do you need, Mike? And they go, Mike, I need new customers, revenue, and growth. You get that for free working with Petzey. We route to the closest vet near you. So you could be taking calls from Petzey. We offload non-compensated care. Look, and I'm like you. I had a golden retriever. I call my vet all the time. I talked to her for 45 minutes. Thank you. Click. She got paid nothing. Now all those calls inbound, she gets paid. We're taking an operational cost. All those talented, passionate, certified veterinary technicians that are in the clinic, they're a cost center for that clinic. Now they can all be on that Petzey network, taking calls for their clinic, bringing in new people into the clinic, and they're now making revenue for the clinic. So we love working with vet clinics. We love being part. We're kind of like their pre-authorization process, Kenya.
got it.
Before I have to go to run to the vet, I'll call Petzey. If Petzey told me your dog just ate chocolate, it's going to die in an hour, I would have picked up my dog and ran to the vet.
Well,
Mhm.
we have to pick up this segment and run to our next commercial. So we appreciate, Mike, your passion, and we'll be back with more Passage to Profit right after this.
Now it's time for Noah's retrospective. Noah Fleischman is our producer here at Passage to Profit, and he just has a way of putting his best memories in perspective.
A leading sociologist in a recent interview made a claim that the source of most of our problems in society today generate from a lack of discipline. I believe it. Look, when we were small children, our parents told us exactly what we were going to wear, exactly what we were going to eat, and exactly when to go to bed. When I was a child, the television stations did that too, with TV programming. They told us exactly what our choices were, exactly when we could see them, and exactly what we weren't going to be able to see. This whole world of on-demand, anything, anytime we want, is blowing us into a world of constant indecision. It's getting out of control. I mean, if you're not somebody that can actually lie on the bed and flip through 1,495 channels in 4 minutes at night, chances are you're living with somebody that can, and even that's a little crazy. We've got to treat television like the treat that it is. Take it back to basics. Here's something you can try. For next week, make a list of all the shows you might like to watch. Create your own little TV guide. Then, when TV time rolls around, make a choice. Watch the one you really want to see and sacrifice the others. And then, like in the good old days, wait a year until you can see the ones you missed all over again. That's how we're going to center ourselves, because in order to do so, the more you give up, the more you get.
Welcome back, listeners, to Passage to Profit, Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart and our special guest, Mark Drager, teaching us all about marketing and what we need to do in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing show. I mean, so far. So, but now it's time for Elizabeth's question.
Yes.
And so we
so-
usually spend at least 2 or 3 hours before every
No, we
program
don't.
debating what question we should ask our guest at the end.
So if we're
and so-
listening, yes, if you've been listening, you know that we had healthful food that is actually part of a larger movement to help transform the planet so everybody gets to eat. And also we had televet, I guess is how you would say
Well,
it.
it's called
So-
Petzey, but it's like televetting.
Yeah.
Right.
So the question I want to ask everybody, and I'm going to start with Mark Drager, is what food do you share with your pet?
Well, I made the mistake. My 2-year-old puppy, Rhett, he's a red retriever. And I don't like to share anything with them other than if I'm cutting up a roast or cutting up some meat. Like if I'm butchering something, I'll kind of like throw him a few scraps. And now he just, every time I get the cutting board and knife out, he just sits there. He just like
He
sits there and
knows.
stares
Yeah,
at me. And it's
they
like,
they know.
oh gosh,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
so that's the only thing is I'll give him some meat.
yeah.
Okay, so we will go to Mark Priddy next.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, Mike, love the work you're doing. Our 16-year-old Havanese actually just passed away a few weeks ago,
Oh.
and which was really hard in the family. But it just, as you were talking, Mike, about what you're offering, and so many memories and stories kind of came through my mind as when we didn't have the time to run to a vet and et cetera. But so she lived a great life and brought us much joy. And one of them was sharing popcorn with her. And so she'd hear the popcorn popping in the microwave, and we take off a little bit of the popcorn, and she would just be sitting there waiting to eat it. So that was one of the foods that we enjoyed sharing together.
Nice.
That's nice. I've never heard of popcorn, but
For a dog, you mean?
yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard of
You've heard
popcorn.
popcorn.
Okay, you got me there. Yes, I am familiar with popcorn generally. I meant to say I'd never heard it fed to an animal.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay. So with that, let's move on to Mike Ortega. So what food
Okay.
do
I
you
give
share
up.
with your
You-
pet?
I give up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I am guilty, I'm sure, like many of your listeners, that I get out the whipped cream and I just put a little on a plate and all the pets come running, as you
Oh,
know.
really?
And so I'm guilty of that. Shame on me, but I have shared whipped cream with almost all my pets.
That's a Starbucks thing too. I think.
I
isn't it?
know.
A
it's-
puppuccino, a
Yeah.
puppuccino right there.
See, humans and animals have a lot in common. So,
so yeah, what do you I know you lost your beloved dog a little bit ago, but what food did you share with your pet?
Yeah, it's so funny you bring this up though, because I was telling my husband this the other day. I think it was around like Thanksgiving time. We usually would have leftovers and like we would give him like his little, Thanksgiving feast. And I was kind of sad that we didn't get to do that this year. So I would say around the holiday time, I miss giving him his like annual holiday fix.
Yeah.
and so would you create a little plate for him? Is
Yeah,
that
like we
what
would
you
mix it
do?
with his
Like
food. We
little
give him a little
turkey?
gravy, a little turkey, maybe a little prime rib, depending on, so
That's pretty,
Aw,
that's pretty elaborate.
sweet.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what about you, Richard? What food do you share with
Well,
your pet?
our cats, we've got 3 cats, and they really don't eat a lot of human food right now.
No, Okay.
I mean, we've had cats in the past that have like just ate anything, but right now, the only thing that we have one cat, Max, that's young, and he likes lunch meat, and so if I fix myself a sandwich, he's like there right on me, and he's sniffing around. Of course, they can smell it as soon as it comes out of the fridge, and he knows what's happening, and so I feed Max lunch meat.
Oh. Mm. Well, anyway.
You didn't know that?
No, so-
You're always the ones that's like, give him a little piece of your sandwich.
Yeah. So anyway, so we had a cat who died in April, Checkers, who was human more than she was cat. But when she was a little kitten, she was starving. We always get these rescue cats, so they're all starving all the time, right? So we would feed her and give her human scraps. But then her first Thanksgiving, she ate so much turkey, her stomach was extended, and she went down the table and just lay there, and she never ate turkey again.
I just laid on her back like a beached whale, just kind of half rolling around, trying to digest all the turkey. So
Turkey again. So that is the end of the question, but I do need to go over everybody's websites.
I think
right?
that's the next step
So-
in the program.
So we do our wrap up now. And we had with us Mark Drager, brand and positioning expert, founder of Phanta Media, podcast host and storyteller. And you can find him on markdrager.com. That's markdrager.com or Phanta.com, PHANTA.com.
Yeah, and I definitely put Mark Drager in the thought leader category when it comes to
Yes.
marketing. He had a lot of interesting and original thoughts today. So definitely
Right.
check out his podcast.
And certainly keeps up with the trends and everything that's happening.
Yeah.
Right. And then we had Mark Priddy with Happy Day Brands, just happydaybrands.com, spelled like it sounds. And he's making healthful food, but he's also trying to change the world. It's like a movement.
Yeah, and food
Giving-
insecure.
helping with food insecurity.
He
for
said that
people.
food is a right, and I think he's right. I mean, I do think in this time, in this country, around the world, we have enough food to feed everyone, so no one should be hungry.
Right.
Somebody
so-
needs to fix that.
Well, Mark is working on it.
All right.
And then we had Mike Ortega with Petzey, Petzz. I have it spelled two different ways here. Is it Zey or Zy? Zy? Okay.
It's actually ZEY.
Zey.
Petzey.
I might have said it wrong earlier. Okay. So, yeah, sorry, my notes are wrong. And then we had Mike Ortega with Petzey.com, Petzey.com. And that's an app that connects you to a vet any time of the night or day. So you can get an initial screening of your pet. It's like triage.
Right. And what's, if you're a regular Passage to Profit listener, you notice the energy that Mike brought to his presentation. He's right in the middle of growing his company, and he has that entrepreneurial energy and
Thank you.
Passion.
and that you'll at some point, if you follow your dreams and do a startup, you'll be there too. So
Yes. So I thought that we had an excellent show. I really learned a lot. And
yeah, and unfortunately, though, it is time to sign off.
right.
And I just want to say that before we go, I'd like to thank the Passage to Profit team, Noah Fleischman, our producer, Alicia Morrissey, our program director, and Mark Wilson, our syndication manager. Our podcast can be found tomorrow anywhere you find your podcast. So just look for the Passage to Profit show. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And remember, while the information provided during this program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without first checking with your legal professional. That's it for this time, folks. We'll see you again next week on Passage to Profit.